I am on an absolute roll this morning, and I'm just kind of on a roll. I kind of get to the end of the last one and then I mention something like, oh, that's a really good topic, I should record it. So I'm doing that again now. So apologies if I'm in the same shirt. And when you're watching this, I block out Mondays on my schedule specifically for doing this kind of creative work. And I set a goal for myself to just do one a week. But I recorded a podcast yesterday and I got really excited about content creation, and I started thinking about all these lessons I could teach, and you just get on kind of a roll with this. And maybe it's that, or maybe it's because I know I have to write a workshop and I really don't I'm really not feeling terribly inspired to write the workshop right now. So maybe it's a little bit of like, hey, I can focus on this shiny object over here, entrepreneurial ADD. I will let you decide which. But I thought I would do this episode specifically on why you need to remove toxic people from your life for more reasons than are obvious. I think toxicity in this world is greatly overstated because of how sensitive everyone has become, and simple criticism is now considered toxic by a large chunk of the population. Disagreeing with them is considered toxic. Simply having an opinion that differs from their own is considered toxic. We all know who they are, right? There's no secret to who they are and where they exist. But because they've taken this word toxic, what it's opened up kind of like when everything's toxic, nothing's toxic. And so a lot of people have voices in their lives that are truly toxic elements, and they don't know they're toxic because they look at this group and how they label everything toxic, and they're like, well, no, not everything's toxic. Some of them have valid points. And because there's this blurring of lines of what is truly toxic and what is not, and this idea that you shouldn't be a special snowflake and have feelings and all of this kind of stuff, it's very messy. And so I think people need to recalibrate what true toxicity is and how they need to remove it from their life, and how to deal with people who do drive their net happiness down, right? The subheading for this, the Rocky and Bullwinkle other name for this episode, is also going to be why entrepreneurs tend to not have many friends. And that's the flip side of it. So I think as entrepreneurs, we really attract each other. There's not a lot of people who are happy with their 9-to-5 jobs that are going to be naturally attracted to entrepreneurs, because the growth trajectory is so radically different that a lot of people don't understand it. It's kind of like in college, you meet a lot of different people, and you go to art school, you meet a lot of different people. And there are certain people that were on the periphery of my friend group that I wouldn't hang out with all the time because they were just so odd. They were just a little too far out there to where, like, if you hung out with them for a little bit, it would be cool. But if you spent like an inordinate amount of time with them, it's like, all right, this guy's kind of weird. Like, give me kind of weird vibes. I don't really want to spend time with this guy. And the reason I mention this is because everybody has that experience. Everybody has the experience of like knowing somebody that's like kind of cool, but the longer you spend with them, you're like, you're just kind of bizarre. Like, your shtick it's cool when it's in small doses, but when I have to hang out with you long term, like the shtick kind of wears off and you're just weird. I don't like hanging out with you. As entrepreneurs, we tend to become that person later in life. So earlier in life, it tends to be more of like the theater kids or the nerds, or like those people that are like traditionally considered on the outside of mainstream culture, the goths, the punks, those are the people that tend to be like on the outside. But as people mature and those individual labels start falling away, and I know some people continue to be goth until their 50s. Like, I know people that still are like way into goth into their 50s, or way into anime or whatever, well into adulthood. But for the most part, most of those groups start shrinking as people start matriculating into the workforce, matriculating into mainstream culture, starting families. And like, they may still have interests in those, but they don't hang out in those cliques anymore, right? They hang out with the parents of their kids' friends, or they hang out with work colleagues, and they suddenly have these much more mainstream kind of attractions to each other. And this is where the entrepreneur really struggles to get a footing. Because entrepreneurship is a naturally lonely journey because you're building something for the most part on your own, unless you have partners in the business. You're also spending all of your waking energy and time on this thing. So you tend not to have the same kind of hobbies that people that have 9-to-5 jobs have. You also don't have the built-in networks of a place of work. And if you're the boss, well, no one wants to hang out with their boss at the barbecue. So it's not like you have that community outside of work where you're hanging out with your employees. I mean, I guess some people do, but that's not necessarily a given. And so traditionally, entrepreneurs tend to not have a large group of friends, and those group of friends tend to fall into like 3 categories. The first is other entrepreneurs. The second is like friends from the past. So friends that they grew up with, friends that they reconnected with from high school or whatever. So it's like that group of people. And then like what I would call like family friends. So this could be like your family or like connections that were like practically part of your family. Like everybody has that guy that's like, well, he's not really technically part of the family, but he's been to every birthday party our family's had for the last 40 years. He's practically like family. So really for an entrepreneur, those are like the 3 groups. Because remember, a lot of us don't have hobbies. I mean, some people do, some people go out and do it, but we don't often have those hobby groups. So we don't have networks like that. And we don't have the work groups. The only other group, and this is kind of special, is if you have kids, then you have this parent group, which is what my wife and I are building right now, is a group of friendly parents that we can hang out with. And so because of this, because of the way this is structured, the way these groups interact, you tend to not have a lot of choice in the matter of who you're going to surround yourself with. It's kind of just who floats into your orbit. And so everybody says you can choose your friends, not your family. So your family is who your family is. And family friends, those are going to be the same kind of thing. The kids from high school that you reconnected with, or the friends from college, well, a lot of them are not going to be entrepreneurs. A lot of them are going to be 9-to-5ers. And they're not going to really get what you're doing. And they're going to remember you from back in the day when you weren't an entrepreneur and you were slacking off and chugging 40s with them. And they're going to wonder why you changed so much. You're always doing something new. And that's kind of off-putting for them because they don't have the same growth trajectory. They've kind of plateaued. They took the stable job and they don't grow anymore. And so they don't really know what to do with you because you're not consistent. And humans like consistency. You don't have a consistent schedule. They can't count on you to hang out every Saturday anymore. You don't want to go out to drink with them every Friday night. And because of that, and they don't get who you are, and they don't know how to deal with it, a lot of times these can be some of the worst offenders in terms of bringing negativity into your life because they will essentially think of you as like, well, man, you changed. Like that kind of famous cliche is because they don't know what to do with all this new information. Right? Their situation didn't change. They got the stable job. They get the cost of living increase every year. They've gotten promoted 3 times in the last 10 years or whatever. And they just don't understand why you didn't do something similar so that you guys could go out to the bar and hang out. It's very similar to what people go through when people get like married or like long-term engaged and like they start spending more time with their partner and their friend group starts kind of dwindling, right? Or they start separating themselves from that friend group. It's a very similar kind of thing. And so you have that group. And then the next group you have is your entrepreneur friends. But your entrepreneur friends are busy. Like they're building too. So they're not looking to hang out with you on the weekend because they're doing entrepreneur stuff. Like they don't want to go golfing. They don't want to go on vacation because they're building their business. They're busy too. So even though they would be the most positive force in your life, the ones rallying for you, carrying on, they're busy. So even though you might catch being a Slack channel with them or send messages back and forth, they're not going to be the predominant force in your life. Your family's going to be consistent, and this friend group that you've maintained is going to be consistent. But they're not going to be as consistent because their schedules are just like yours. They're all over the place. And when it comes to your kids, friends, parents, like that's more of an association based on your kids. So like, well, if the kids want to hang out, we'll hang out, but we're not going to necessarily go out of our way to hang out. And even if we do, a lot of times the parents aren't going to be entrepreneurs, so they're not really going to know what to do with you either because they're like, well, when we talk, I can't relate to you because like I work a 9 to 5 and you're doing this like crazy thing. And like every time I talk to you, you do something new. And that's kind of disconcerting because I don't know how to talk to you about that. You don't have any hobbies we share because you're busy all the time. So again, it creates this kind of like surface level relationship that never goes deeper. And so those two tend to be the least negative influences, to tell you the truth. The like kind of forced associations that come from like being part of a parent group or something like that. And then your entrepreneur buddies, those tend to be the only like real positives. Your family and your close friends that you've maintained over a long period of time tend to be the biggest negative influence. Your family, because they want what's best for you. They've seen you develop. They're worried about your happiness. They're not entrepreneurs, so they don't get it. They don't get what you're trying to do. My parents were entrepreneurs, and my mom did not want me to be an entrepreneur. So it's very much a protection mechanism because entrepreneurship is so hard and people don't want to see you struggle and they don't want to see you fail and they don't understand that challenges and failure are a good thing. They don't get that because every time they fail in their life, it's a massive like detriment, and they don't understand the risk analysis of a 40-hour work week versus building your own business or like a regular day job. That's why I mean 40-hour work week, a regular day job versus entrepreneurship. They don't get that risk analysis. And because of that, your family is always going to be this kind of like subtly negative force. Because even though they'll cheer you on your wins, anytime you're struggling, they're always going to be like, well, it's never too late to go get that job. And like that kind of negativity, while good meaning, is still an element of kind of toxicity. But the place where most toxicity really comes from is from those close friends that you've maintained over a long period of time because, oh, we have so much history, we used to ride bikes together, whatever. Because those people are not comfortable with the growth they're watching you experience. They feel left behind. They feel like they don't compare. They feel like, why do you have to buck the trend? Why can't we just hang out? And so that's why I think a lot of times those relationships just dry up. Like I can say today, I don't really have any relationships from back then. I have people I've reconnected with briefly, and I wish I was better at maintaining those relationships. I really think that is a character fault of my own, my inability to maintain some of those relationships, because the people I have reconnected to were anything but toxic. They were definitely like cheering me on for the success I was having. But I think the challenge is just when most people that fall into that bucket are toxic, you just tend not to develop the skill to maintain those relationships and just prefer to let them kind of die off because it's just not of value to you to maintain those. Now, the people I consider friends, the people I'm closest with, a couple of them are my clients. And I think part of that is kind of that same forced association. Like, hey, we do business together. I see you all the time. And we also have a lot of stuff in common. So it's kind of that forced association plus the entrepreneurship thing. And those are great friends. So I think that has been my kind of secret sauce is like, I've met so many people doing this and built relationships that way where yes, if they fire me, that is probably going to be the end of the relationship, which sucks. It does. But it's the kind of thing that is only more motivation to do my best work for them so I can avoid that at all costs. So that not just to put money in my pocket, but so that I can keep that relationship that is beneficial to both of us. Now, this also goes to, I think, why entrepreneurs do have such a hard time making friends is really boils down to the fact that we lack time. We don't have the time to invest in the activities that would expose us to making friends. We also have a growth trajectory that is very unusual for most people. Entrepreneurs seem get to be successful, the really dedicated, the ones, not the entrepreneurs, not the people who say they're going to start a business for 10 years and at the same are like never quit their day job. Like, yeah, their trajectory is not going to be different. The people that go all in, the people that like take the big risks, their growth trajectory is much greater and much more dramatic. And the things that happen in their lives are much more dramatic. And I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable besides other entrepreneurs who get it. So you have this growth trajectory issue, you have the time issue, you have the fact that you don't really want to focus on anything that doesn't directly improve your happiness and growth. And so the thing that's going to give you long-term happiness is growing the business, or growing the business 50% of the time, spending time with your family 50% of the time. There's just not a lot of time to develop those new relationships, and there's not a lot of desire. And so, first off, I want to give you permission to just not have a lot of friends. Like, I'm not saying friends are overrated, because that's silly. Like, good friends are good. but you don't need them. You don't need friends to be successful, and you shouldn't feel like having a lack of friends means you're not successful, right? It's not a grade of success having close friendships. It's a good thing, but it's a good thing in the same way flossing every day is a good thing. Do you have to floss every day? You should. It's good if you do. Some people think you'll live longer if you do. Will you die if you don't floss every day? Probably not. Will the dentist ream you out because you don't floss every day? Maybe. But it's not a mandatory. By the way, I do floss every day. But regardless, insert your own nice to have thing here. So I just want to say, when it comes to those people that do tend to be more toxic, you can't remove your family. I would recommend just not talking about your business. That's the easiest way. If people ask how it's going, just be like, it's going good. Don't get into the nitty gritty unless they ask, unless they show genuine interest, because 9 times out of 10, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're not going to be that interested. And for those friends that you've maintained, really evaluate if you're still in a place to maintain that relationship, or if you're just doing both of you a disservice by trying to keep something that's died a long time ago. Because a lot of times we hold on to these relationships to a point where it's like, yeah, we're not really friends anymore, but I'm still going through the motions with you because I care about the relationship. On that note, mentors too. That applies doubly to mentors. Like, you will come a time when you are smarter than your mentor, when you're more successful than your mentor, and it will be time to find a new mentor. And that can be hard to let go of. But having someone who is unable to take you to the next level in a mentoring relationship is just as bad as hanging out with that friend who does not grow, does not change, and tries to consistently pull you back to their level. It's the same kind of dynamic. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if it was in the comments. Looks like this one's clocking in right around 20 minutes, so I guess that's kind of the average for these. In case you didn't listen to the other episodes, the only reason I really do this is because I want to leave a diary for my daughter so that she has something that I didn't have as a kid, which is the roadmap of how my dad built a successful business. He didn't leave that for me. I got to watch it from the sidelines, but I always wished that I had had recordings of him talking about his business and how he thought about it and the work he did to get it launched. And so my goal with this really is just to record this as a diary, tracking that kind of journey, the lessons I learn along the way. And in the meantime, while she's still growing up and these lessons aren't going to make a lot of sense to her, I hope it can help somebody else. So best thing you can do for me is to like, share, comment, that kind of stuff, so that hopefully one day she looks back on this, that she's old enough to really take in these lessons, and she sees, hey, my dad has like 1 million hits on some of these videos. That's pretty crazy that he had that many friends. So that's my selfish ask, is I just really think it would be cool to be able to show, like, hey, this diary I left you, like, look how many people it helped. I know that's terribly selfish, but that's what I'm going for. So if you can like, share, comment, I would really appreciate it. If you want me to cover a topic, if you want my input on something, like, leave it in the comments, reach out. I'm sure the information will be on the screen somewhere. And yeah, until then, see you on the next one. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to like and follow my page to see more of my content, and subscribe to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to check out the full episodes. You can find all those links in the description.